Hey, Karls community. We just finished an interview with Coach George Karl, one of the winningest coaches in NBA and frankly professional sports history. So many nuggets, so many insights. You are going to love this. Normally, we release these about a week before they hit the Catalyst Health, Wellness, and Performance Coaching podcast. This one has some potentially breaking news right toward the end of the interview. So you're either going to want to skip ahead or hang around to hear that. And for that reason, we're going to release this about 6 weeks before it hits the podcast. So if you're a subscriber here on the YouTube coaching channel, you'll get early access to that kind of fun stuff. If you're not yet a subscriber, easy way to tell us you like what we're doing. So thanks for joining us. Enjoy the interview. Really appreciate Coach joining us for this interview. And let's go be a catalyst. Coach Karl, it is a huge privilege to have you join us. We've been working on this a couple of years. It's great to have this finally come to fruition. So welcome aboard.
Well, I don't know exactly where we're going, but I like getting outside the box into the wilderness, and let's go. Let's see what happens.
That sounds like a plan. Now, you are literally one of the winningest coaches in history, sitting ahead of folks like Phil Jackson, Larry Brown. What is it about your We love psychology on this podcast. What is it about the psychological approach or your mindset that produced those consistently high results year after year after year that you think might be different than most people?
I think players like my passion for the game of basketball. I think it's contagious. Most days, I would say 90% of the time, my days, I'm a positive guy. I come to work excited. I have a lot of energy, and I like talking basketball and motivating and inspiring and lifting and energizing a game. I think they realize it's genuine, it's real, it's going to be there every day. It's probably going to be a little goofy when I'm on a winning streak, and it's going to be a little angrier when I'm on a losing streak.
And that was consistent over time. That was not something that you came in your first 5-10 years in the league, because you coached from what, 84 to 2015, something like that, 13?
Yeah,
somewhere in
that's
there.
about it.
So that energy, that passion,
1,999 games,
and that was a constant for you. That wasn't something that was a youthful coach energy or passion. That was something you felt like, you know what, Brad, I had that in 2010, 2013, as much as I did in 1987.
I think it has different faces. When you're a 33-year-old coach, you're young and enthusiastic. You're into having fun and motivating with maybe your youthful enthusiasm. At the end, I was, I was like grandpa. I was like a professor at college. Players look at you differently.
Sure.
Because you evolve, you get older, you have more respect sometimes when you win a few more games. But in the same sense, I think they feel my desire to play the game in a manner that what I call the right way.
Yeah.
I think it's a we game. I think it's a team game. And I think the words like trust and belief and discipline and connection, all those things are important to develop a good team basketball game.
Is it still a we game? I mean, I'd love to believe that's still true. It seems like it's tougher to see that now than it was in 87. What are your thoughts on that? Because I know you're completely tied into it. I follow you on Twitter. You're dialed in. You know what's happening. Is it still a we game?
I think sometimes you got to search for it, but I think when we're playing for the championship, that's what you're finding. You're finding what team is connected.
Yeah.
What team is totally committed. What team has intense focus. What team has the discipline to overcome a bad loss.
Yeah.
I think in the regular season, you get a lot of what the hell is going on out there, basketball. Right now I think the NBA's got to be a little worried about all the blowouts we're having.
Yeah.
There aren't a lot of close games right now. I mean, there have been about 3 nights already that, I'm turning the TV off at 9 o'clock because there's no more games.
Yeah.
And I think that's a little unusual. But I think the short training camp has somewhat hurt the game coming together early. So I think right now you got a basketball season that nobody's quite there yet. There might be a couple teams playing at their highest level, but there's a lot of good teams that haven't even figured it out yet.
Yeah.
They've had a lot of bad nights, and Milwaukee hasn't played that well.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Lakers haven't played that well. Dallas hasn't played that well. Miami has. Chicago surprised us. But 82 games is a very long slice.
Yeah.
It's a very long season, and it is a process. You don't want to be playing your best basketball now.
Right.
You want to be playing your best basketball come April. And I think the other thing you want to get going is you got to figure out what you need now, and maybe during the year you can develop that guy, or maybe somewhere, if you think you're good enough to win a championship, make a trade. Make a trade in February where you might make that step that can get you to the top of the mountain.
So let's chase that rabbit tail for a second. Basketball aside, let's take this idea of you don't want to be playing your best basketball now into life. Are there periods of life where you say, yeah, that's kind of true. Like, you don't want to be playing your best basketball in your 20s. You want to be playing, and I'm not talking about basketball, obviously. I'm talking about life and focus and energy and emphasis and pursuing the most important things. Like, do you feel like you're playing your best basketball now at this phase in your life? I've listened to several interviews with you. You've talked about how your ego's changed. You've talked about how you've embraced the more important things in life. Do you feel like you're playing your best basketball right now in your life, or that's a tough one to say?
Well, I think I know who I am better than I ever have. And does that mean I have my best basketball? I think when I'm in a position of a leadership position or authority position, I feel good. I feel good about my words and my wisdom and how I speak. I don't have a lot of ego. If you reject what I say, I'm okay. I don't go defensive and go yelling, "What the hell are you doing?" And I think our world is changing very fast. I think the game of basketball is evolving faster than I thought it would. I mean, in 2013, that's 8 years ago, there were about 5 teams in the NBA playing fast. Now there's 27 teams in the NBA playing fast. Yeah. Now, I didn't think that transformation would happen that fast. Analytics, statistics, philosophy, money. There's a lot more money in basketball now to hire an analytical guy or hire a physical therapist that has magic hands. And there are owners trying to find the edge. They're trying to gain the advantage that can take them from a good team to a great team and a great team to a championship team.
Right. You coached against all the names that people recognize: Karl Malone, Michael, Magic. Are there stories, or there things that people would be surprised, the listeners, that say, "Oh, I never knew that about those guys"?
All the great players have a drive to be better the next year when they come back from playing. Their commitment to improving their game and staying on top of the mountain, I don't think it's enough love, enough respect. To be a great player for 10 to 15 years, to me, is amazing. And Kobe had it. Bird had it. Bird's career was kind of ended by an injury more than by losing his skills.
Right.
But, Michael has it. LeBron has it. Magic had it. I mean, I still think Magic doesn't get enough love.
Really?
As one of the great. I mean, I think he's one of the best players ever to play the game. He's never in the LeBron Kobe Michael argument. I think he should be.
Huh.
Some of the, like you mentioned Malone, one of my favorite players of all time is Tim Duncan.
Oh yeah.
The guy that, not very flashy, not very spectacular, but Mr. Fundamental, and played on a championship team when they weren't the most talented team very often. They were just a team that connected. They trusted each other, and they would never beat themselves.
Right. Yeah. This one you might have to ponder this one for a second. What if basketball didn't exist? What do you think you'd be doing? What would your life have looked like? What would you have been involved with? Any kind of side dreams that you say, you know what? I've kind of thought about that, and I probably would have been a X.
Well, I think I would have been an athlete. The sport might have been baseball. Going to North Carolina, I thought I was going to play baseball and basketball in North Carolina, but I hurt my back. I had back surgery my freshman year.
Really?
And Coach Smith asked me not to play baseball because the back is a part of the swing. He thought I could aggravate my back if I played baseball. So I didn't play baseball at Carolina. I don't know if I would have even after I got into the system of playing varsity basketball. Other than that, I went to college thinking I was going to be a lawyer, maybe a politician. I hate lawyers, so I'm glad I never became a lawyer. I don't like how much money they charge for unbelievable, simple things. And I think they messed up our system a little bit, but don't get me off on that tangent. But, if I didn't go into, I might have gone into politics, but I don't want to be an elected office, an official that is elected. I want to be the chief of staff of the governor.
Got it.
I want to be the guy that pulls all the triggers and puts all the meetings together that magnifies your team. But I like the gym too. So I might have been a kid's YMCA teacher or something like that.
Yeah. Interesting. That makes sense. And I think what you described on the politician side, you kind of had to do, that was kind of your role as head coach in many cases, especially with the players and the way you had to work that around and, different catering to different folks and different times. So that's an interesting answer. You mentioned Coach Dean Smith. You have been quoted multiple times, one of the greatest coaches in the history of the profession. You said he's a great teacher of basketball, obviously, but he's a better teacher of people, a better teacher of how to grow up and find the right path. What do you mean by that? Can you expand on that? What was unique about him compared to other coaches that you've interacted with, been coached by, et cetera, et cetera?
I think I can say it simply by saying I think if Coach Smith had a teaching point the day before an NCAA championship game, and he had a situation that it would be better to bench guys or sit guys or suspend guys than win the national championship because of the growth of the person as a human being. I think Coach Smith would lose the NCAA championship. He cared about his people, not only players, but managers, stat guys, assistant coaches, grad assistants. All those people were very important to him. And he, I've said many times that the best decision I ever made was to go to North Carolina because I got the friendship of Coach Smith the rest of my life, Coach Guthridge the rest of my life, the fraternity of basketball the rest of my life. I think it's the number one athletic basketball team type of fraternity that we are loyal to our university. We'll do anything for our university and we'll do anything for our basketball team. And
was that driven by Coach Smith or is that something that was unique to those people at that time that you were a part of?
There's no question that the love for the university is genuine. We all love it for different reasons. North Carolina is a hell of a school. I have a senior in high school right now. I want her to go to North Carolina. But the athletic program under Coach Smith taught you to do the right thing. I mean, I always liked it when he got angry. He always would say, just do the right thing. You all know what the right thing is. Just do the right thing. And that sounds simple, but the game of basketball can be that simple. We make it complicated. You know, he always told me coaches over coach. When I went into coaching, he said he felt 90% of coaches over coach. And I've always remembered that. So I think I've always been a coach that wants my players to have a window of opportunity to show everybody and me what they can do. I don't want to control so much that it kind of inhibits growth. It inhibits creativity. And I always want to play a game that players like to play and have fun playing. Fun and joy have been lost a little bit in pro sports because there's so many now experts scrutinizing all our mistakes and our failures. But I just want you to know that they're not a head coach in any pro sport doesn't get the awareness that it's a hard job. It's a hard job. It's a well-paying job. It's a job of status. But I'm not saying that everybody that thinks they want to be a head coach, when they would get to be a head coach, I'd almost bet 90% of them would quit because they don't want to do what I had to do my whole life.
All right. So that's a great lead into my next question. The egos in the NBA, like, wow. You obviously had your journey with Melo here in Denver. It's fairly well understood what's happened. I'd love to have you give us a little bit of backstory on that. But could you just give us a short version and then use that as I don't want to spend a lot of time with Melo. You're probably sick of talking about that. But just a short version of that and then use that as an example of how you learned to effectively work with all the different egos that you had to deal with over your 32 years of coaching?
Well, you know, along 25, 30 years ago, you didn't have to worry about the 10th man on your team, your 9th man on your team. Today, there's a lot more ego management and attitude adjustment to the guys that don't play.
Really?
You know, you got to keep them happy.
Interesting.
Because they're on guaranteed contracts. Huh. Your owner doesn't want unhappy players. So there's more management of the attitudes and the egos than ever before. When I first got into coaching, we very seldom talked about it. Now, almost every meeting I had in my last 3 or 4 years, the first thing we talk about is who needs a pat on the back and who needs a kick in the ass. Because, you know, you play a lot of games. And even when you win by 20, there's in today's game, 1 or 2 guys still might be pissed off. And I don't think that's good because you have too much time going to negative psychological nonsense rather than the joy of the game of becoming a really good basketball team and trusting and believing in each other.
And is the money the driver of that? Is it the change with AAU ball? Is it, yes, all of the above? Like, what's changed that so much?
I think it's money. I think money more than ever. I said a long time ago when money started blowing up in the NBA that it's great. I'm a millionaire because of coaching in the NBA. Why? I'm not sure I'm a millionaire because I would have done it for a lot less money. But money is not the why, the reason you win championships. It's the passion for the game. And if you don't have passion and you're just doing it for money, I think you're going to fail in getting to the top of the mountain. The guys that win championships have this inner drive, the intrinsic talent of motivating themselves or inspiring themselves to go further than no one else has gone before, to push themselves to a better place and a better player than they've ever been before. So I think it's the money. I think AAU basketball and college basketball right now is it's going to be really interesting where it goes with being able to pay players now. I'm not sure that's going to be helpful. I think that's going to be more nightmares for coaches in college.
Sure.
And now even coaches in high school.
So the Melo situation, again, don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but just briefly, was that part of it, that you were this intensely competitive, let's get better? I want to talk about your idea of culture of better in a moment. And Melo was more concerned about the stats and, you know, how can I maximize my profile and those kinds of things? Or am I missing something in that picture?
Oh, I think Melo's problem was he wanted to score more than he wanted to be a triple-double guy.
Mm.
I mean, to me, the great players make other people better. The great players have the ability to be, you know, to fade into the crowd if someone else is playing really well. Melo wanted to be in the spotlight. And I don't think that's necessarily, I'm criticizing Melo. There are a lot of players like Melo in the NBA.
Sure.
And I just don't know. We never got Melo to commit to maybe the championship attitude. To win a championship is what's the goal. I think Melo's goal was to see how great he could become. And I think because of that, I think he missed a couple of years where he might have been able to win a championship. I know he's trying to win one with the Lakers this year. I don't think they're a very good team right now. Will they be able to make a trade and become a really good team? Maybe. But I think Melo now wants to try to win a championship, where I wish he had made that commitment 7 or 8 years ago, where his talent was good enough maybe to win a championship.
Yeah. You guys are so close. We're here in Denver, so we're all on board with that. Okay, I mentioned this before, but in some of your interviews, you talk about having an unhealthy ego at times. How did you wrap your mind? This just sounds insane to me. How did you wrap your mind around winning Coach of the Year and getting fired a few weeks later? I've always been a big George Karl fan. My son and I followed your career. I didn't get it. It seemed insane, but I watched it. You lived it. What happened? I mean, not what happened, but what happened in your head as that was all taking place? That just sounds like insanity.
Oh, I think it was because I thought it was more of Josh Kroenke took over running the basketball team at a very young age. And I think when he lost Masai to go to Toronto, he saw the opportunity to become his team. He wanted to make the decision who the general manager was going to be and who the coach was going to be. I thought it came at the wrong time. When he told me that was his decision, I said to him, it might be the stupidest decision you'll ever make in your lifetime. You're throwing away a really good team that likes playing the game, likes going into the gym and getting better, and likes each other. And you're going to bring another guy in and you think he's going to be better? That window of better, yeah, there's guys out there that might have made that team better. But the window of not being better was bigger than the window that trying to find the guy that was going to do better than we were doing. It made no sense to me. I wrap it down to youthful energy and youthful enthusiasm by a young guy that was given the power to make that decision. And he wanted to do it on his own time. And because of that, he had 6 or 7 years of what the hell is going on out here, basketball.
Yeah. All right. I sent this to you in advance. I don't know if you got a chance to look at it, but it was a real interesting study that just came out in an international journal. Looked at 3 different eras of the NBA since the three-pointer was introduced in 79. It talked about 80 to 94 was the classic era, 95 to 2013 was the transitional era, and then 2014 to current is the modern era. You coached during all 3 of those. Did the psychology of coaching change from this, what they define, and not necessarily by year, but classic, transitional, current? Did you see your coaching strategy, style, psychology change during those different phases?
I think not only does your psychology change, how you play has to change. The game has evolved from a game in the 80s of big guys. The big guys were the most important guys on the court. It was a slow game. It was a physical game. It was a defensive-minded game more than an offensive-minded game. The 3 ball has come into this game and has now put the magnifying glass on the offensive end of the court. Now, that took about 25 years to go into where it is now. And where it is now, I'm a little worried about. I don't know if the game has another way to go. What I love about basketball, you can win different ways. You can win playing slow, you can win playing fast. You can win playing big, or you can win playing little. You can win with zone, you can win with a man-to-man. There's a lot of ways to win basketball games. But today's game now says you got to make the 3 ball. You got to make the 3 ball.
Yeah.
No matter how you play, you cannot have a differential of your opponent getting 15 threes and you getting 5. That hole was too big.
Yeah.
And so will they have to address that at some time? I think yes. I don't know what that means. You know, some people say to move the line out and take the corner 3 out. I kind of like that idea.
Do you?
Because I think you take the corner 3 out, I can defend the 3 ball a little bit better. But I get asked the question all the time, will the big man ever come back to the game of basketball? I said, the big man will come back, but he'll be a perimeter player.
Like a Jokic.
The big guy is never going to come back to where Will Chamberlain or Bill Russell or Jokic. Nikola Jokic is a great player, a great talent, one of my favorites.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you can win a championship with your best player being your center now. Well, Jokic can play outside. He's also their best passer of the ball. So he's unique. So I'm hoping they can. But big guys right now, if they don't play well, it's actually more advantageous to play a 6'9" guy that has quickness and speed and athleticism.
And can hit that 3.
Right.
Yeah. All right, let's shift gears a little bit here. You are a student of the psychology of coaching, but you've lived through the psychology of cancer, 3-time cancer survivor. Any connection between the two? Did the psychology that helped you as a coach all those years, all the struggles, all the challenges, did those skills help you going through cancer 3 times? Or is it a completely different, unrelated skill set, mindset?
Well, I think the thing that comes to mind when you ask that question is, I think I'm successful a lot because I'm a gritty player. I like to get dirty. I like to be challenged. I like to be motivated by difficulty. So I have a passion for the game and I have a perseverance when I get knocked on my ass to get back up and kick some ass later. That's the way I was when I was in 10th grade. And I think it's the way I am now. It might get annoying at times, but, you know, I'm a tough opponent. I like to compete, and I like doing it the right way, but I also like winning. And I think when you're around me, you feel those things. So when it comes to cancer, I think my mental toughness was there. My second cancer with the head and neck, with the chemotherapy and radiation, there were days I thought I was going to quit. Not quit on life, but quit on basketball.
Right.
Because I didn't know if I had the energy to come back and get it done. And when I decided to come back, I learned to delegate and give responsibilities to my assistant coaches that I had never given up before. And it was something that I learned to be very, very good for me. I wish I had learned it 20 years earlier, and I might not have been as stressed, or I might not have been as fat. But I think the combination of stress and how I ate and how the NBA schedule is, you go to bed at 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the morning too often. I think a lot of my lifestyle hurt me in my cancer world. Today, I'm more balanced. I try to get time for myself. I try to eat organic. So, you know, it's, I think what we know a little bit now, that what you eat is really important in cancer, and stress and inflation in your body is really important in cancer.
Would it be possible? So you're not currently coaching. Would it be possible to make those choices if you were coaching, traveling 82 games on a plane every other night, or is it just off limits? Coaches just signing up for 10, 20, 30 years of unhealthy living. Is it possible to combine the right choices with the profession of coaching?
I think you got to be really disciplined on scheduling your life. I was more of a, you know, I was more impromptu to my things that I did. But you got to be coaching and living a good life, because the schedule is so brutal and so difficult. But yeah, I think you can do it. I think it'd be difficult, but you got to have, but the NBA has a lot of ability. Now we try to feed our players the right stuff. Mm-hmm. 10 years ago, there were potato chips and junk, licorice and candy. There was junk on our plane. There's no more junk on the plane. Now I mean, a lot of teams are organic. A lot of teams are trying to teach the young 20-year-old player that what you eat is really important to you. So it's going to get better. It's going to get gradually better. Could I do it now? You know, it would be a challenge, but yeah, I think I could.
Let's talk about caffeine for a second. As you were talking about that, with NBA games being, you know, sometimes to cover the different TV schedules, they may not start until 10 o'clock Mountain Time or 9 o'clock Mountain Time. Are the players using caffeine? As far as you know, everybody's different, but as far as you know, is that something that they're using consistently with coffee, with, you know, whatever the soda is with the high caffeine, et cetera, to get up for those games, and then they're not sleeping till, you said, 2 a.m? Or do they save those for the playoff games? Do they save those for the elimination games? Any sense of what's going on with caffeine in the NBA?
My gut says everybody's trying to find that lift.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's a lot of caffeine going on. The old school was a couple of cups of coffee.
Was it really?
Now it might be Red Bull or something like that.
Yeah.
I think they're more into that 8 ounces, a quick hit that you can almost feel as it goes down your throat.
Yeah.
Lighten you up a little bit. Yeah.
So even though they're playing late games, they're still digging in, knowing that's going to hurt their sleep that night and probably hurt the next game.
You know, I had the honor to play in one NBA final. And what I was amazed at, how tired I was. in between games. But I never, ever thought I wasn't ready for any game. But, in between, you're worn out.
Yeah.
You're mentally and physically pushed to a limit. And then when that game starts, you're there.
You go.
You're ready. You're pumped. But I think a lot of what I learned was our mind will follow our heart. And I think our heart, when our heart is in it to win a championship, your body and your mind will follow.
Yeah, no doubt. You talk a lot about, and I love this because we have a phrase, better than yesterday, but you talk about a culture of betterment. What does that mean to you? How did you apply it as a coach?
It comes in different forms. A lot of times betterment might be just having fun, celebrate your successes, bringing joy to your locker room with laughter. And when your team is playing well, we don't celebrate enough. Coaches overcoach the negative a little bit. But the whole thing comes down to is there's so many, now you have all this video, all these assistant coaches. And so everybody gets assignments almost on a daily basis to go out and somehow get better. Get better physically, lift weights, eat right, look at film, learn, mentally get smarter, physically get tougher, and hopefully get a little better with team basketball too.
So I'm thinking about some of my favorite players over the years. In fact, I thought you'd appreciate this. I saw your tweet, David Thompson's jersey from back in the 70s. I understand you did play with him, North Carolina State, North Carolina. Did you guys ever play there, or was it early NBA? Where did you interact with David? I'd just love to hear some DT stories.
David Thompson, his senior year, went undefeated at North Carolina State. They beat North Carolina 3 times.
Wow.
I think by a total of 5 points.
Wow.
So every game that we played was very close. And again, you brought up another bad subject because, a couple of those games I got in foul trouble in one game. I remember that. I stepped out of bounds on the last play of a game once. But, he's a hell of a player. I didn't think he was that hell of a player when I played against him back then. But he turned out to be one of the all-time greats.
Yeah.
David was really... I wish he wouldn't have got stuck in drugs.
Yeah.
Because I think David Thompson he had a lot of more highlight films to give us.
Yeah, no doubt.
But because of the drugs, I think his career ended very quickly.
Yeah. How would you apply that culture of betterment to or how are you applying it to your life now? Since you've retired from the sport, the culture doesn't change. The mindset doesn't change. How are you doing that now? What are you doing to make George Karl's life better tomorrow? Your pursuits better tomorrow? Your impact more expanded tomorrow than it is today? What does that look like for you right now?
Well, there's an outside chance that I'm going to go into making documentaries on basketball.
Really? That would be fascinating.
I kind of become a storyteller of great stories. The one story that I'm really into now is ABA basketball. I think ABA basketball doesn't get the love it deserves.
Agree.
I think in a lot of ways when the two leagues merge, the ABA was a better league. But nobody thought that because it was a floundering league. It was a failing league.
Right.
But the players in the ABA, we might have had a better team than the NBA. But the NBA has never given the ABA very much love. Why don't we play with a red, white, and blue ball? Well, I think it'd be a great idea. Or maybe play with the home team colors. When you come to Denver, it's red, white, and blue. When you go someplace, it's green and white. But we do everything else to gimmick the game and make money. Why don't we do it with the ball?
I love that.
And I love the 3-point shot, even though I think the 3-point shot is now causing us a little bit of what the hell's going on. So, my time at Real Madrid and European basketball, I don't think gets a lot of love. So that's another story I like to tell. I'd like to tell a story maybe about Coach Smith and Coach Guthridge in North Carolina. People don't know that they were friends for over 45 years.
Wow.
And the people at North Carolina know how close they were. But, Coach Smith, when he died, Coach Guthridge died 3 months later, just because I think they were that connected. I think God said, these guys got to be together. So, I'm evolving. I speak a lot to kids. I speak a lot on basketball, but I also speak on leadership and teamwork. I read a lot. I speak a lot. I've learned to balance my life out. I exercise daily. I meditate on a daily basis, just trying to stay strong, mentally strong, and somewhat physically strong.
Yeah, I almost feel like wrapping up there, but I got one more question for you. And we have a lot of coaches that listen to this, either they're athletic coaches or more likely they're health and wellness coaches, life coaches, et cetera. You've coached the best of the best in this category. What advice would you have for those coaches that they're not NBA coaches, they're not NFL coaches, so it's a different avenue, but they do have some super high performers, some executives they're working with, some type A, double type A type folks. Just kind of closing, any final advice for those folks as they're working with that type of client?
Well, I still think about my belief is a good coach teaches his mentor, he mentors his student or his friend to find out, to make him his best him or her the best her. I don't ever go in trying to fix someone or majorly change someone. I try to find their strengths, magnify them, and maybe find one or two weaknesses I know that I can get better. But, if you get better at a 10% level every year of your life, you're going to have a hell of a life.
Yeah.
You're going to learn a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
And I think people sometimes try to do everything in 1 year. If you just look at your life as a process of getting better every day, a little bit physically, a little bit mentally, a little bit with the group of people that you hang out with. There's so many things we're learning about how the brain works, how the body works. We're learning about motivation and inspiration. And I think we now know that inspiration is better than outside motivation, have internal motivation.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? That's, towards the end of my career, I gave more players books to read a little bit because if I don't have an answer, maybe someone else does.
Yeah.
And all you're trying to do with your players or people that you're managing is get them a little better.
Yeah.
Get them to be aware of what they need to change and motivate them to make that change. Don't you try to make that change for them.
Coach, that was awesome. That was so perfect. All the coaches are like, oh my gosh, he's almost quoting the National Board for Health and Wellness Coaching code here. So well done. Well said. We so appreciate you. Keep up the great work. We got to get you out there coaching again, though. That's all I'm saying.
Well, my daughter's a senior in high school, and I think next year will be an interesting adventure for me. I don't know what exactly it is, but I committed to being a stay-home parent until she went to college, and she goes to college next year.
Ah, so
maybe
there's news coming. There's news coming, folks. I just heard that. You heard it here first. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I know your schedule's crazy. This was awesome.
Thank you, Dr. Brad.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.